Hello there. Today we're going to look at a couple of things in the customization area, just to give you an idea of different things you can do. Let me share my screen right quick. A couple of things, neither of them are really groundbreaking, I guess, but they're just an example of a couple of things that are possible. Sometimes you need something special to do a little project, so we're going to jump right into it. On our, we're going to look at a way to do a custom pop-up form. Sometimes you just need a thing, and several times I've been asked to I thought I was on the wrong presentation, sorry. In this one, several times I've wanted the ability to pop up a pop-up form to maybe enter a number of fields or do some other processing where I didn't want to go to another sheet. And there are several ways you can go about doing that. If we do use the standard tools, we can add a custom sheet somewhere on the form, add controls and processing to it, change focus from the original point to the new sheet, do some things, and when we get finished, we could change the focus back to the original sheet. That has some pros to it. We can set that up with a sheet wizard, and we can use standard Epicor controls on it. I'm going to stop my video because it's going to cover up part of the screen. The cons are that you zoom all over the form. This form pops up, and that form pops up. There's no process control. There's no done button, and users can click on another tab or exit the form in the middle of what you're doing. Another way is to you can, and this is not a bad not a bad solution depending on what you want. You can add a group box to your sheet and add all your controls and processing, and then position it off the visible area. And so with some event, you can reposition it into the visible area using that statement you see there. And when you're done, you can pop it back off the screen. And the pros are, again, you set it up with a sheet wizard. It's standard, accepts all the Epicor controls, and it doesn't leave the current sheet. The con is there's not much process control. The done button is not enforced because you can switch to another sheet, or the user can close the form. Another way is not quite standard, and this is what we're going to look at. We're going to wrap a new Windows form inside a dialog box. We'll show you what that looks like in a bit. The pros are it halts the other selections and processes until we finish the task or we cancel it. So the window pops up, you can't get out of it, you can't even close the form until you're finished with this process. And then we will either approve it or cancel it by a couple of buttons. The cons are the form is created on the fly in code. And since the form is temporary, controls can't be permanently attached. And we'll show you how we get around that, because we decide to work around the cons. My philosophy is never write anything from scratch if somebody has helpfully posted an example on the internet. And the second part of that is always share the good stuff so other people can benefit. The way we're going to get around part of this is we're going to create a separate worksheet so the sheet wizards work. So we'll create a group box. We'll add controls and binding. We can make the sheet invisible to the user at some point if we want to. And at runtime, we're going to steal controls from the worksheet and put them onto the new form that we're going to build on the fly. And we're going to work on the ABC code maintenance form since it's very simple. And this is what you get with the standard. And this is what we're working toward. And this is a very simple example here. There are a lot of things you could do, more fields, different processes, put a grid on it, whatever you need to do inside this window. And we're going to get there by using the standard tools and also by adding some code. I'm going to go off of full screen mode here because we're going to do some actual coding. You'll see here I've got the developer mode on. And we're going to select customization. Well, you see I've got some things I've already done, but we're going to start with a brand new customization for this example. Open the customization. Everything pops up on the other monitor. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is create a new sheet to work with. So we'll go to the sheet wizard, add a custom sheet, attach it to the main panel, give it some kind of name. All right, so we have our new sheet called field work. Now here we're going to add several controls. Going into the toolbox, we will add a group box. And we'll give it a name because I don't like leaving those unnamed. We'll make it a little bigger. And we're going to add some controls. We'll add a label here, give it a name. Description. I'm going to add a text box and link it up to a column. We don't need any text. We're going to bind it to the ABC code just to see how that works. Attach it to the label. Give it a location. And this is important because this is how it's going to come out on a form. It's going to use this X and Y location and the binding, all of this. One more, just for giggles and grins. You'll see some more on these names in a bit. This one we're going to add a check box. I'm going to bind that. And attach it to a label. And position. Okay, so we're all done here. We've added our new sheet. And as said earlier, when we get through, we can make the sheet invisible so the user won't see it. We've had our sheet. our group box and the labels and controls, which have XY position within the group box. Okay. So got that part. Now we need an event to fire this thing. So back on our main sheet, go back to the toolbox again and grab us a button. All right, and we're going to attach an event to this, but for it to be able to see it, we're going to have to save this and exit out. And reopen it. So the customization will see that text box. There's our new customization. All righty then. So we want to add an event that we can trigger with that button. And this might be a button, it might be a value of a drop-down box, checkbox, just some kind of event you can trap that will pop up this this form for whatever use you need it. This one's simple, we're just going to click on it. And then in this code, I'm going to paste in a method that we're going to be running shortly. Copy that, paste it in. And update that. Alrighty, so we have all our fields, we got our pop-up button, we've got our event in the customization. You'll notice if I check the syntax, of course, we don't have this value in here yet, but I'm going to copy and paste some things because we don't have all afternoon for me to type it in. Let's get a special request. All right. When we click our button, it's going to run this code right here. It sets up our dialog box. We set a form height up here, and we call the pop-up form with these arguments. And you'll see here, we will see in a moment where we're going to have an OK button and a cancel button. So if we click on the OK button, then when it returns, we can run some code for whatever purpose you have here. If it's the cancel button, which is anything other than the OK, since there's only two choices, there's code here that will that you can execute in the event of a cancel. All right, let's get toward the good stuff. Here is where we create this dialog result form. We're calling it pop-up form, and we pass into it the form height, width, title text, all those kinds of things we set up in the previous method. Inside the dialog result box, you'll see we're creating a new Windows form. And that's all contained within the dialog result. So it'll pop up over the screen that's shown in the background. We set up a few controls like a prompt, continue prompt. We set up a couple of buttons. We pass in some information. We assign values to the buttons. There's the text. Here's the results. Here is just some XY positioning for those buttons so that they will show up toward the bottom of the box, no matter how big it is. More setup. And we get down to the good stuff here. We've created this new form that doesn't have any controls in it. It's just a blank form until here we add all those controls. And these controls are the ones we just set up inside this box. But these are coming from our other sheet. And notice we don't have any positioning or binding or any of them other information that goes along. Probably had a drink. That goes along with those controls. So the dialog result fires, shows the dialog. We press a button and we return whatever the dialog result is right here. So if we press the OK, we do that. Otherwise, we do that. And so any controls that have been changed in the pop-up form that were contained or attached to a data view, all those values have already been set. If we're doing some kind of code stuff there, that's been taken care of. Easy peasy. All right, don't hear any objections. Just to make sure, we're going to close that and we're going to see what it looks like. We'll have to, of course, open it up again. There's your pop-up button. See your fields. Notice if we pop it up, this point, we don't have a record open, so the bindings are keeping those closed. Yep, I've been canceled. If you look back at this sheet, you see it's stolen the fields and put them on that form. And these will show up here the next time we open this form. All right, let's get a code. Now we pop it up. All right, you see it obeys the rules. This is a read-only field because it's that key field there. But we can change that one and see that it's automatically bound to the same data view columns. All right, so now we've been approved. Again, this could be any other event. You can key on anything here to pop that form up, depending on what you're needing to do. And this is a very simple customization, but you could use this for framework to do whatever project you've got in mind to sit within it. All those things are in the presentation there. And that's all this one. I've got one more to go here in just a moment. But if you want a copy of all of these, the presentation, the customization, I will be happy to send it to you. Just you can send an email to this address right here, and I will send you a copy of all of it. And we promise not to harvest your email and send to a Nigerian prince or anything. All righty. All right. So the second part of this is another little hack that I've been asked to do a number of times. And we're going to use row rules on this one. I've had this a number of times where a customer has asked me to take something like, an order entry form or a customer form or, a number of things, and make certain fields read only for certain groups of users. And field level security, it's good, but it's a lot of work for something like this where you want to make everything read only but a few fields. So in this case, it was easier and more effective to go into the customization. And row rules are really what this was built, were made for this kind of situation where you set a condition, and depending on the condition, you affect the display in one way or another, whether you highlight the field or you disable it or some other action. In the last recently, I've had this the same thing, and the customer had this requirement that for a certain group, certain users in a certain group, we would only have 3 fields in the whole supplier maintenance form that were editable. And it was this 3 right here. I believe that was for some SOX compliance, something like that. I didn't inquire too much because that's what they wanted. So I'll run you through what we did. First thing to do is go through the Epidata view list. This is in the customization. You can go look and see all of the Epidata views, and there are a lot more than this in there, but these were the ones that I found were used. And this vendor detail was the only data view that had these 3 fields. So I've got to treat it special. Well, the first thing I did was set up the security group purchasing. They wanted the purchasing group to go through and be able to change those 3 fields. And then I went and added that group to the user account. And a quick VAQ, because we're going to use this in the customization. Just a user file. The criteria is the current user ID. You get 1 record back. And the main thing we're looking for is the group list, and that purchasing is going to show up in there. When you go into the customization, to use the dynamic query adapter to access our BAQ that we just wrote, you need to go into the custom assembly reference manager and add this one right here, the dynamic query, DLL. And then in the customization, we go into the form event wizards and add a load event. And this will run when the form first loads, and it runs this method. And this may look familiar to a lot of folks. It's pretty standard. We're just using the dynamic query adapter to run our BAQ and get a result back. So it goes out, if the current user ID has this group attached to it, we're going to get this back, and we're going to set this variable purchasing group to true. And that just runs once at the first, when we first load, so it doesn't take up much resource. And in the code, there are a few little things we'll need to enter. This using statement, the dynamic query needs that. A few variables. This is our user groups list, a table we're going to be using, and the purchasing group. This is a variable that we're going to set to true if the user is in that group. And then we'll need to set up a reference to this data view because we're going to read through it. All righty. Now we're down to adding the row rule. This is what it looks like. It's under Wizards, Rule Wizard, New Row Rule. And we go find, we give it a description. Then we find the rule view that it goes with. And that's, earlier we looked at all the data views that were in this form, and this is the one those three fields belong to. So we select the view. We select a field. For our purposes, it doesn't really matter which one. And we're going to tell it the rule condition. You could say this if, if the customer num equals, or the vendor num in this case, equals something, do something. We're going to set our own condition up. Apply that, and then we set up a new file, a new rule action. We've got to set up at least one for this to work. And you see how this works. You select a field, and then you select if their condition is met, what happens. And in this case, we're going to use disabled. So if our condition is met, which is the user group, we're going to disable this field right here. And this is a result. Here's the row rule in action. We're setting up rule actions right here. This is what happens if our rule is met, a condition is met. And here's where the custom condition is in this little method. If we have set purchasing group to true, then we're going to fire the methods for this row. Right? But that's just one field. So we want to do all of them but three. So here's where the hack is. Here's the old code for this rule action. It sets up the rule actions array here, and then it applies how many ever we entered in the rule action. In this case, actually 1. And this code's got a couple components. This loop runs through our data view, runs through the columns on the data view, and says if it's not equal to phone number, fax number, email address, or the vendor ID, which we have to leave open so you can enter that key, then we're going to count how many of those are. There's 192 fields in that data view, so we're going to count up to 189 in this case. And then we're going to run through the data view again, the columns in the data view. And we're going to set this array up to how many ever fields we counted, and then run through the columns again. And for each one that doesn't match these 4 values here, we're going to add a rule action. And this is the heart of the customization right here. We're going to add rule actions for every field that we want to, in this case, disable. And here's the key right here. We're going to set up in the vendor detail data view the column name that we'll get right here, and setting style disabled. And this could be highlight, it could be invisible. There are a number of available settings, but in this case, we're just going to turn them off. Not turn them off, we're going to prevent the user from changing anything. And when we get through and run it again, our 3 fields are editable: phone, fax, and email, and the supplier ID. And that's just what we want. If I run this for another, the user is another group that's not in purchasing, there's no change. All right, those other 7 data views we looked at, they're a lot easier to do because we don't want any of those editable. So we set a new row rule up here, or the vendor purchasing point data view. And again, we have a custom condition, but instead of field, field action, we're going to apply our change to the whole row. So it makes all the columns in that row read only. And then we update that. This is what it looks like. This is a standard row rule. and we add in our custom condition. Again, there are a number of things you can set the fields to. And that's most of our presentation. Again, if you want all these customizations, please feel free to send me an email, and I will send you the presentation deck and the customization that goes along with it.